on how to become your own therapist. I think we are joined by many from all over the world, and it's wonderful to see you all and to show interest in this topic, because I think the world really needs people who know how to work with their own mind, how to solve their own problems, and how to make the mind maybe more peaceful. The world is really in a need for that. Is Jamyang. Originally, I'm from the Netherlands, and I've been teaching for Tushita for almost 2 years, sometimes. I don't know if I need to say anything else about me. If you want to know more, you can find that on the Tushita website. So what are we going to do? We have 6 days in a row, each day 1.5 hours, to think about the topic, and we'll use at least 1 hour for teaching and then half an hour for meditation, but it might be 1 hour, 10 minutes and 20 minutes meditation. So depending on how we go. For those who are familiar with Zoom, you have, and who are those who are following on Zoom, you can ask questions in the chat box. If you could send them to me, that would be great. If you send them to Register Tushita, they also will end up with me, so no problem about that. So if questions come to your mind during the teachings, feel free to ask. Sometimes I'll check if there are questions. If I cannot answer your question today, I will look at the questions tonight and then see if I can come back to them in a later point in time. Also, if you have any comments, please feel free to leave them in the chat box. And sometimes I might ask you questions during the teachings, and like, what do you think about this, you know? So then I invite you to say something in the chat box. I like to teach interactive. I'm really missing the people in front of me, but maybe when we use the chat box, we can make up for that a little bit. So what are we going to do within this course? I'll give a short introduction on the topics that I would like to discuss. So first of all, why do we need a therapist? We're going to talk about that. Is there really a need for, I mean, we're all here because somehow we have the feeling we might need someone, no? So then if we think about a therapist, what kind of qualities does our therapist need to have? We're going to think about that. Then what are we suffering from? What are our problems? You know, maybe the problems are on the psychological level, on the emotional level, on the physical level, on the spiritual level. We have to check and then see what kind of, first of all, find the cause for all these problems. And in Buddhism, then we're going to talk about karma and disturbing emotions. And then we're going to look into the root cause of all that, which is our self-grasping mind. And on dependence on that self-grasping mind, we also have the self-cherishing mind. And so we need to look into what is that and how can we address that mind. And then we're going to talk, of course, about how we can work with our mind in order to lessen or counteract our problems. What options do we have to make things better? And we can think about how can we lessen the disturbances in our mind, how we can counteract the self-grasping mind, how can we transform the self-cherishing mind into a mind that is cherishing others. So we're going to try to talk about all these different options that Buddhism has. It's not that there is one solution. It is about having maybe 10 ways of seeing what is going on and redirecting the mind in a way that it is less disturbed, more spacious. And then when the mind is like that, the heart will open up more. So to give you a framework for this, we will also talk a little bit about the mind in Tibetan Buddhism and about reality within how reality is described in Tibetan Buddhism. Many of you are new to Buddhism, so I will spend some time especially on what is the mind today. So I'm going to try to give you the essence of Buddhism. You can study Buddhism for many years. I did. But to make it really practical and make it applicable to your mind, we just have to get to the essence. And if you can get that, you know, you might find tools that are going to benefit your mind the rest of your life. That's what I hope. So what do I expect from you? Buddhism is all about developing our mind, developing our wisdom mind, developing our compassionate mind. So developing this mind doesn't come from listening and absorbing, and that's it. Listening and absorbing, that's the beginning. Then you need to start thinking for yourself. Is this true for me? Does it apply to me? How does it apply to me? What can I do with this information? Is it really true the way it is said? How would I say it? And the more active your brain is in questioning, in analyzing, in investigating, the more your wisdom mind will arise. You know, that is what activates your wisdom mind. Wisdom is not something that comes from outside and we just pour it in and then it can come out. Wisdom is something that comes about when we start churning inside, chewing on the things that we hear, reflecting on them, challenging them, checking them. You know, and then when the brain is active and the mind, not just the brain, but also the mind, you know, deep inside, in your gut, in your heart, you have to check on all levels. You have to investigate on all levels. And then that process of investigation and analysis is what activates your wisdom mind. Your wisdom mind is already inside you, is already present. We just need to wake it up, you know, or wake it up more. Maybe your mind is already very awake, but wake it up more. So please check everything what I'm saying. Don't take anything for granted. Oh, Jamyang said this and this and this. It's not good enough. Right? You have to come to the conclusion that you say, I have observed this and this and this and this. This is true for me. You have an unshakable wisdom inside you. That's what is going to help you. Okay, so I ask you to think actively and check if the things are true for you the way they are said. And if not, how are they true for you? What is true for you? And it is not about being right or wrong. It's not really important. The main thing is that you activate your mind. Then you cannot go wrong, actually. You know, you're always right. Okay, that's a little bit what we're going to do. All right. So then to start, in Buddhism, we always say, if you engage in activities, there are two things important in terms for the outcome of your activity. One, motivation with which you engage in the activity. And the other one is the way you dedicate all the positive energy that you have gathered by doing the activity. So before we normally start any teaching, we first set up a motivation. And I think before we set up the motivation, we can do a little meditation in order to settle the mind, in order to focus the mind, so that your mind is more receptive. Your mind can absorb more what it hears and then engage in your own analysis. All right. So in the meditation today, I'm going to teach you the body posture for the meditation, and I'm going to teach you how you can bring your mind to the present moment, very detailed. But for now, for setting the motivation, I'm just going to ask you. And then you close your eyes. Your back is straight. And by closing your eyes and turning your mind inward, you let the mind settle. By bringing the mind to the present moment. Aware of your body. When the mind is aware of the body, all your thoughts start to settle down. And then think that the way your mind works at the moment, we are not in control over our own mind. And when we're not in control over our own mind, it is going to be very difficult to help others solve their problems or to be of benefit to them in other ways. First, we need to understand our own mind, how it works, and why it is that we keep creating problems for ourselves. And once we understand this, we can look for ways to untangle our ways of thinking and bring them more in line with reality. And this will help us to connect with our inner qualities of wisdom and compassion. They are present in our mind. And with the right tools, we can develop that wisdom and compassion in a limitless way. And when we do that for ourselves. But once we recognize these qualities in our mind, and we recognize that all sentient beings have the same qualities as we have, somehow naturally the wish arises to use these qualities for the benefit of others. So try to think that that is your motivation for listening to these teachings, for reflecting on it. So why do we need a therapist? Normally because you have problems that maybe you have tried to solve them already, but somehow every time you engage in similar problems, you meet similar problems. And when there are problems in our life, whether they are in our body, whether they are in our relationships, whether they are in relation to our environment, we suffer, right? We're not happy. And when there are problems, there is automatically something like, I want to change something. But if you have tried already several times, you make changes, but then again, a problem arises. Similar problems arise. So what is it that you're doing that you cannot solve these problems? And at a certain point, you can come to the stage that you say, I need some help. I need some help. I cannot do this on my own. I've tried so many times. I engage every time in the same mistakes somehow, but I do not know how I do that. So I'm going to go to a therapist, right? It is like we haven't cracked the code yet to how to find that happiness that we long for inside. And so we all have that need for happiness. We share that with all sentient beings, whether this is human beings or animals or other sentient beings. We have that need, and it is important for us to be happy. We can be so much better people to others. It is so much more pleasant to be with ourselves. We are so much more willing to help others. We have so much more resilience. We function so much better when we feel happy. So it is important that we are happy, that we find a way to be happy. When we have problems, we don't function, maybe we don't even get out of our bed in the morning. Or when we see things, when we are unhappy, then every little thing that is there that is disturbing our mind, more unhappiness arises. Then we start complaining. Then other people are not happy with us. They don't like us. Maybe they start talking about us, and it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. So looking for a way to be happy with yourself, with your life, with your situation is very important. So we go to the therapist, and then we can see, like, what do we expect the therapist to do? Maybe the therapist can help us to clarify the problems. Or maybe the therapist can help us to look at the situation in a different way. Or maybe they help us to shine a light on the workings of a mind in terms of the disturbing emotions that arise in the mind, how we react to things, right? That's a big problem that we have, the way how we react to things. And we're going to talk about that extensively. Also, the therapist is very good in asking the right questions to find issues that are behind your problem, right? When a problem arises, we are mostly focused on the problem itself. We are looking at why is this problem arising in my mind? Or why is this problem arising in my life? I think a therapist also helps us to connect with painful experiences and helps us to go through painful experiences. Right? It's not easy when we're on our own to do that. And if I forget anything, please let me know. I'm happy to mention more. So for you to answer this question, I'm going to ask you a question and I hope you're going to send me some answers. So what if you are looking for a therapist? What kind of qualities would you like your therapist to have? And in the meantime, yes, there was a little bell at the end of the meditation. Sorry. I'll hit the bell a little bit harder the next time. So we like someone to be patient, to be wise, compassionate, and caring, to be a good listener, to be non-judgmental, to have a similar belief system. Wait. Yes, have a similar belief system. A really good listener, that's very important. Can give you guidance. Having some empathy is important. Emotionally adjusted. I'm not completely sure what you mean by that. Being kind. So a very important one seems to be being a good listener. Smart, educated, being in the here and now, having the ability to handle uncomfortable situations, being qualified, a great listener. Okay. So if we're going to project that onto ourselves, right, because we're going to become our own therapist, how well do you listen to yourself? How easy or difficult is it to listen to yourself? And I'm not talking about very superficial, not even being aware, just giving yourself what you want, but deep listening. How often do you sit with yourself and do you go inside and say, what's actually going on for you? Can we do that? That's a skill, no? Often we are busy. I mean, we have had last 6 months a great break from that, but before that, we would be so busy running. And then to sit down and listen, it's almost impossible because the energy keeps just going. And why would you listen to yourself? You have so many other things to do and you just keep going, right? Now, I don't know how your personal situation is, but maybe you have more space, more time to listen. Maybe you have been able to let go of that doing, that running. Maybe in that break, you have come to a rest. And that is a better condition for really listening to what is going on for insight. And then somebody needs to be educated, needs to know about the mind, needs to know about emotions, right? So that's what we need to learn. The person needs to be connected with reality, which is very important. What is real and what is not real? And that's a huge topic in Buddhism. According to Buddhism, we are totally out of touch with reality, and that's our problem. According to Buddhism, we are emotional beings, just reacting, just running after things, or trying to be separated from things that we don't want. We don't even think about that. Rational mind is not present when we do that. Right. And emotions, disturbing emotions, they are out of touch with reality. They exaggerate. They exaggerate positive qualities from objects or negative, depending on how our relationship is with that object. If we like something very much, we exaggerate a positive quality. Right? We exaggerate. Why do we exaggerate? Because we cannot see, according to Buddhism, the nature of reality. We talk about that extensively tomorrow, I think. We exaggerate how things exist. We make them more permanent, more solid than they exist in actuality. And so on the basis of that, the disturbing emotions arise. Attachment, aversion, and then dependence on that, all the other disturbing emotions. And they also exaggerate the objects. So being in touch with reality is very important for a therapist who can say, is that really true? The way you see it, is that really true? Check it, you know? So we'll talk about that, how you check that. And then we need compassion, loving kindness, mindfulness, you know, these are also all qualities. We need empathy. So if we talk about these qualities, do you have these qualities in relation to yourself? Often we can listen really well to others, but not so good to ourselves. Or we have a lot of compassion and understanding for the problems of others, but not for the ones from ourselves. When we hear people talk about problems, our wisdom mind can come quite easily and say, oh, I know what you can do. You know, here is a solution. And then with respect to our own problems, we have no idea. But the main point, I think, being your own therapist is that you feel safe with yourself, that you feel listened to, that there is acceptance, that there is a non-judgmental attitude. Do you have that? Or would it be good if we spend some time developing that, how you can do that? I don't know. I know it's not everyone, but I know that many people, the way they treat themselves is they wouldn't treat anybody else in the world like that. True? No, some people say no. Yes, it's true. So that is important, that we treat ourselves well. right? Because if we want to listen to what is deep down going on inside our own mind, we need to feel safe. Otherwise, these inner voices, they're never going to speak up. We need to feel safe. We need to feel loved. We need to feel nourished. We need to feel accepted totally for who we are, each and every aspect of us. That's what we need to develop. So we'll talk about that, or we will go deeper into how you can do that at a later point in time. So what do we do with Buddhism? In general, we can say Buddhism is a guide to happiness, whether that is happiness in this life or whether that is the perfect, pure happiness that goes beyond life. Not beyond life, but beyond this life, you know, and beyond the disturbing emotions. All the gradations of happiness, all the kinds of happiness that you can develop. Buddhism is a guide. How to do that, how to train your mind so that this happiness arises in your mind. And so the essence of Buddha's teachings is that it shows you the characteristic nature of your human potential, the capacity of the human mind. We feel we are quite limited human beings, right? We can only do so much. I can only do so much. But in actuality, we have the potential to develop our qualities of wisdom, of compassion, of loving kindness to a limitless capacity. You know, we can develop the mind in a way that we can feel love for each and every sentient being, where we can feel that we wish each and every sentient being to be free from suffering. We can develop a mind that really understands the nature of reality, that understands how things work in the world, but also that understands the ultimate nature of reality. So our mind is huge. We can develop the qualities of the mind in a huge capacity. Then we never have to say, oh, that's not possible. Yes, things are possible. Everything is possible. Things might take time, but everything is possible. We just need to create the causes for things to happen. And so the methods in Buddhism teach us how to develop a deep understanding of our own mind, of how we work, but also of all other phenomena. And so according to Buddhism, all the problems that we experience, they come from the mind. And in order to understand our problems, we first need to understand what the mind is and how it works. And especially because there's so many people at the moment here who are new to Buddhism, I'm going to talk about what is the mind, you know, and also what is a person. And I do that from Buddhist perspective because, you know, that is what I'm teaching. So, so you need to know what I'm talking about when I talk about the mind. And when I talk about a person, what is that? Just let me have a look at the questions. Okay, that was still from the therapist. Why do people treat themselves badly? We'll talk about that at a later point. There can be different ways, different reasons why it is like that. So what is a person? According to, and maybe, I don't know, if you're new, you maybe haven't heard of that, but in Buddhism there are different schools of thought. And these schools of thought, they all represent levels of understanding within our own mind. And by studying about these these tenets, these positions of these different schools, you learn about your own mind, how your mind works, how you grasp at things in a certain way. So what I'm going to say now is from the most subtle point of view of these schools. So they say, what is a person? A person is that which is imputed independence on the body and the mind. Or in Buddhist terms, we say independence on the 5 aggregates. So the 5 aggregates are the body and the mind. The body is 1 aggregate and mind is 4 aggregates. So the person is not the body. The person is also not the mind. The person is also not a collection of the body and the mind. But the person is imputed independence on the body and the mind. It is like a name given to the body and the mind. So the person is something different from the body and the mind. Right? It is imputed independence on the body and the mind. So if we look into the body, what is the body? So that is our physical aggregate. And the body, we take at the beginning of this life. So in Buddhism, we talk about what is the main cause of the body. And the main cause of the body is the sperm and ovum of your dad and your mom. They come together. And once they come together, also the consciousness enters into the body, into the sperm and the ovum, and then the body starts to grow. And then you become the person that you are. So the substantial cause for the body is coming from mom and dad. And then the contributing cause is the mind that needs to be present. You cannot have just a body without a mind. When the sperm and ovum come together and there is no mind, then nothing happens. That just gets eliminated. Then in terms of the mind is a continuum of moments of consciousness. And so the substantial cause for the mind is the previous moment of consciousness. The contributing cause for the mind is the body. We need the body in order to have the mind or live the mind of a human being. Right, so they come together. The body supports our mind, but it's not the substantial cause of the mind. So the mind is not the brain. The mind is not just our thinking. The mind is also everything that we feel, all the reactions that arise in the mind, all the deep-seated beliefs that we have, whatever appears to the mind is mind. And then things arise in the mind, feelings arise in the mind, thoughts arise in the mind, and then we can say then there is this notion of someone who is experiencing, the experiencer of the feelings, or the knower of what is going on in the mind. That is also mind. So things arise in the mind. There is the together in every moment of mind. So the mind is a continuum. The mind and consciousness is synonymous. Mind and awareness is synonymous. So when I talk about awareness, I talk about the mind. When I talk about consciousness, I talk about the mind. The mind is a different energy from the body. The body is made out of matter. So the continuum of the body is matter, atoms. The continuum of the mind is, I don't know, I can only call that's consciousness or mind. And because it is arising from the previous moment of mind, and that is the substantial cause for the mind, we have to posit the mind as a continuity. We cannot posit a beginning and also no end. Right? Because if we would like to posit a beginning to the mind, we would have to say, okay, then what is creating that first moment of mind? And we can only say that is the previous moment of the mind. And because mind is created by the previous moment of mind, you cannot posit a beginning. And because you cannot posit a beginning, you can also not posit an end, where you can say, now the consciousness is finished. So then from that perspective, you can talk about past and future lives. This is one of the reasons in Buddhism why we posit past and future lives. So is some part of the mind in the brain? So because the mind is present with the body, as long as they are connected with each other, the brain functions. No, not necessarily. Right? If we are in a coma, or then in that moment not. But as long as we are awake and we are alive, there is a connection between the mind and the brain. But there is also a connection between the mind and the heart. And there is also a connection between the mind and the gut. So the mind is actually everywhere in our body, everywhere where our attention goes, we can perceive with our mind what is going on. So without the mind, the brain could not function. What we experience is the mind, but we experience with the help of the brain. So some questions go a little bit. How does the consciousness get placed into the fertilized egg? You know, this is just the law of attraction. Is there some part? So an illness of the brain should not affect the mind. So the brain and the body and the mind, they work together. If your body is not healthy, it is very difficult to have a healthy mind. You can, but it is difficult. If your mind is not healthy, then you can easily create diseases or problems in your body. Disease is coming from disturbing emotions. So they work together, body and mind. So sometimes you see people who have a handicap, or they have a lot of problems in the body, and they somehow use that or are able, despite that, to have a healthy mind, to find perfect happiness or a very good level of happiness and contentment. And there are other people who have an unhealthy mind and are totally miserable, right? So that depends, I think, on what you have done before, and it depends on many things. So can you please read out the questions asked for all of us? I can do that. And I pick some questions, right? The person is not the body nor the mind. That is hard to understand, and that is very subtle. So how, I will explain more about that tomorrow, how that works. Then what is the person? If it is not the body and if it is not the mind, then what is it? Okay. you know what we're trying to develop, where we try to get at when we're doing this course. So the Buddha taught that the human nature is pure. Our nature is pure, is without any ego, just like the sky is by nature clear, without any clouds. Clouds, they come and go, but the blue sky is always there. Right? In the same way, in our mind, disturbing emotions, thoughts, beliefs, they arise in the mind, they come and go. But the mind itself, the pure nature of the mind itself is always there. Clouds arise in the mind, but they do not change the fundamental nature of the sky. And in the same way, disturbing emotions arise in the mind, but they do not disturb or cloud or interact with the pure nature of our mind. If we don't understand that the nature of our mind is pure, you won't be able to see that it is possible to discover an innate purity, right? If you think you are bad by nature, or there is something really ugly inside you, you will never go deep into your own mind, you know? Oh no, I'm not going to go there, you know? Or if you think that you're fundamentally negative, you know, then it's very difficult to have hope and to apply techniques that and you apply them with some confidence that you can overcome these negativities that arise in the mind. Buddhism says the mind is by nature pure. In the mind, thoughts arise, emotions arise. They can be positive, they can be negative, but they are all transient. They are all temporary. They all come and go. They are like the clouds in the sky. But beyond our emotions, there is a real basic human nature that is clear and pure. And the better we understand the nature of our own mind, the better we are able to have control over our mind. Control happens naturally when we understand the mind. Control is like our natural state. When we realize the nature of our uncontrolled mind, when we realize the nature of that uncontrolled mind, control comes naturally. So control, when we talk about control in Buddhism, it is not like I'm gonna, you know, like a mount, how you say that? Someone who's riding a horse, you know, I'm gonna control my mind. I'm gonna make sure that I keep whatever I don't like, that stays inside and that I'm not gonna feel that. And that's not control, that's suppression. Control means that you know so well about the mind and what arises in the mind that you feel totally comfortable allowing things to arise because you know what it is and there is no need to react to anything. That's control, right? That's what we are striving. That's what we're striving for. But the striving comes from understanding. The better we understand, the better we know our own mind, control comes naturally. So when we apply Buddhism, Buddhism is, you know, the main thing about Buddhism is experiential knowledge, wisdom, rather than having some kind of dogmatic view where you have certain beliefs, you know, oh, I believe in past and future lives, or I believe in this and I believe in that. You know, many times, and no, I shouldn't say that. Sometimes people come to Buddhism and then they replace their old beliefs, whether they're Christian or Muslim or whatever, with new beliefs, Buddhist beliefs. That's not what Buddhism really is about. It's not about what you believe. It is about what you experience and having the knowledge how you can redirect your experiences. So Buddhism is very practical, and the theory or the philosophy supports the practice. Teacher, he said, the philosophy, every sentence that you find in the text is an instruction for practice. Some people say, oh, I don't like to study, I just want to practice, you know. But what are you going to practice if you don't know how the mind works? If you do not know how to distinguish between one and the other? But if you just study and you never put it into practice, also that is not really useful, you know. So in Buddhism, you want to merge both the study and the practice, so that you practice what you have studied, so that you practice what you have learned. And so if we talk about the nature of the mind, we can say then, what is the nature of the mind? How does it look like when we realize the nature of the mind? You know, when we can see the nature of the mind experiences peace and joy. These are qualities that are naturally arising from the nature of the mind. We don't have to create that. We don't have to, you know, it is already there. The only thing what we need to do is to move a little bit aside, to move these disturbing emotions aside. Or maybe we penetrate them and we go straight to the nature of the mind. Peace and joy is waiting there for us. So the real meaning about Buddhism, and I already said a little bit about that. I think the main thing is we all look for happiness, right? Buddhism is like a guide to happiness. Looking for happiness, that is our instinctive nature. There is nothing wrong with that. We should never give that up. Looking for happiness is what helps us to connect more and more with our innate nature. Because that happiness, the most pure happiness, is when we fulfill our nature, when we can fully see our nature. So never give that up, right? Some people think, oh, Buddhism is all about suffering, so now I have to focus on the suffering. No, also stay focused on the happiness. Very important. So there's nothing wrong with looking for happiness. But the way we are looking at the moment for happiness is not bringing us the happiness that we want. Right? So in Buddhism, we look at where does happiness come from. So we study a lot, but we're not just interested in intellectual knowledge. We are more interested in understanding what is happening here and now in our present experience. What we are in this very moment. What is our fundamental nature right now? And we want to know how to find satisfaction, how to find happiness and joy instead of depression and misery, and how to overcome the feeling that our nature is totally negative. So the only purpose for the existence of what we call Buddhism, or maybe even any religion, is to understand the nature of our own psychic, our own mind, our own feelings. So whatever name we give to our spiritual path, you know, any path you follow, the most important thing is that you get to know your own experiences, your own feelings, your own reactions to these feelings. Because if we do not know how the mind works, you know, we just follow our feelings. We just do what we like. We just try to separate for what we do not like. And if we do that, you know, we might think that we are very healthy. You know, come on, follow your feelings. It's very healthy to follow your feelings. But in reality, what we are doing is we are following our afflictions, our deep-rooted afflictions. And the true cause for psychological disease, but also for physical disease, is these disturbing emotions. So when we talk about becoming your own therapist, we use Buddhist knowledge by the nature of the mind, in order to control the mind. We try to understand our own mental attitude, the concepts that we have, the perceptions that we have. And these are the things that really matter. Right? That's the real meaning of Buddhism. Using the knowledge to transform your mind and become a happier person, a more healthy person. So Buddhism sometimes is described like as a boat that helps you to get to the other side, beyond suffering. Once you arrive there, you can let go of the boat. No need to hold on to the boat. No need to say, oh, I'm a Buddhist, you know, because Buddhism is just a tool. It is not anything more than that. Once that tool has fulfilled its purpose, you let it go. So let me see if there's a question. So how do we know for sure that the nature of the mind is pure? If the nature of our mind is temporary, how is it inherently pure? Isn't it the same nature of the things that arise in it? So is the sky the same nature as the clouds that arise in it? How do we know for sure that the nature of our mind is pure? You know, especially if you think that the nature of your mind is not pure, you will need to do some investigation, both on a theoretical level, but also on a practical level. Because if you have the belief that your mind by nature is not pure, these beliefs are deep, 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 deep into your psychic. And to transform them, you need a lot of work. So how do you do that? By nature pure means that whatever arises in the mind is not inherently part of your mind. That whatever arises in your mind is adventitious. Whatever arises in your mind is something that is coming and going. And so if everything that arises in the mind is coming and going, then there must be a cause for everything that arises in the mind. And if there is a cause for everything that arises in the mind, I can create causes that things arise in the mind that makes me more happy. And I can also create the causes that the things that make me unhappy do not arise in the mind anymore. And if I can do that, that means that there is nothing inherently present in the mind. And that lack of things being inherently present in the mind, that shows that the mind is by nature pure. If the mind was not pure by nature, we would find something inherently negative in the mind that we cannot remove, that never changes, that is always there. And if something like that would exist, you should be able to go inside and then find that aspect of the mind. And you would say, look, because this negative thing is there, it's always there, it's never changing. Because of that, the mind is not pure. But when you start looking inside, you cannot find anything like that. And therefore the mind is pure from the beginning. By nature, pure. Because there is nothing existing inherently in the mind that cannot change, cannot be removed. All right. I'm going to go a little bit further because I want to say a little bit more before we go to the meditation. So how do we find happiness? So in every moment of mind, in Buddhism, we say every moment of mind, feeling is present. And then in dependence on the feeling, discrimination arises. And we say, oh, this is really good. Oh, no, this is really bad. And in dependence on the discrimination, we react and other qualities arise in the mind, like anger, like attachment. So feelings arise in dependence on the body, and feelings arise in dependence on the mind. We see, hear, taste, smell, feel, or think of objects. And when we make contact with the objects, feelings arise. So how do we find happiness? When a feeling arises in the mind, and it is a pleasant feeling, we grasp for more. Wow, this is nice. I want more, right? We go after the object that in previous contacts were the cause for happy feelings to arise. And when unpleasant feelings arise, we say, oh, no, I don't like that. That's bad. And we try to separate from it. We use aversion, and if aversion is not enough, anger or other similar qualities to try to separate from that object. So we follow our feelings. We follow our feelings and we grasp at the sense world in order to get what we like and to be separated from what we do not like. So there are three types of feelings in Buddhism. We have pleasant feelings, unpleasant feelings, or neutral feelings. And the dependence on these feelings, we discriminate and we react. So when we experience pleasant feelings, emotional attachment arises. When the pleasant feeling subsides, craving arises. Craving is the desire to experience it again. And so the nature of the mind that craves is dissatisfaction. True. We don't say when a pleasant feeling arises, that was enough. We say, I want more. But the fact that you want more shows there is a dissatisfaction there. And so that dissatisfaction disturbs the mind. It agitates the mind. We think that is happiness. But if we really check, there is agitation in the mind. And when we experience unpleasant feelings, we automatically dislike and want to get rid of it. Aversion arises. And again, aversion also disturbs our mental peace. And so when we feel neutral feelings, we ignore what is going on, and we don't want to see reality. So in this course, I'm going to mainly talk about pleasant feelings, unpleasant feelings, attachment, aversion. So whatever feeling arises in our daily life, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, they disturb us emotionally. And then there is no balance, there is no equanimity in our mind. And our reactions to the feelings, our attachment, aversion, and ignorance are therefore called disturbing emotions. They disturb the mind. And because they disturb the mind, they're also called negative emotions. Attachment feels pleasant but we call it a negative emotion because it disturbs the mind. So the things that arise spontaneously without us thinking about anything, it all disturbs the mind. We also have positive emotions in Buddhism, but in order to develop positive emotions, we need reasoning. And so in the last couple of days of this course, we're going to talk about how to develop the positive emotions. Positive emotions do not disturb the mind. They make the mind happy and open. So Buddhism says we, as human beings, we are emotional beings. We react. We try to be happy by following our feelings. And our rational capacity, which is so unique for being a human being, we use that mainly to justify our emotional reactions. But we can change that. We can use our intellectual capacity to understand the emotions that arise in the mind. We understand the nature of our mind. We understand the nature of reality. And by creating more and more understanding, the disturbing emotions will naturally lessen. We will get more space in our mind. And then we can develop the positive emotions. So that's what we're going to try to do in this course. And you can imagine that it is a little bit a shortcut, but I'm going to try to give you the essence so that you can use that in a practical way in your own life. So to summarize that, all our problems are coming from the mind. At the moment, we are emotional beings. We react emotionally to our feelings. We follow our feelings, right? And that is the way we try to find happiness, but we also know that that never has really brought us the happiness that has the qualities of peace and satisfaction. By nature, our mind is pure. And whatever arises in the mind is not the nature of the mind. So therefore, whatever arises in the mind, all these disturbing emotions, they are adventitious. They are not inherently part of the mind. So Buddhism is a guide how we can lessen and remove these disturbing emotions and to reconnect with our nature. When we do that, we lessen and remove the suffering and we create more space for happiness. Let me have a look. Seems scary to let go of the boat someday. How can be good to let go Dharma? So once the boat has taken you to the other shore, you have found the way in your own mind to happiness, where the disturbing emotions do not touch you anymore. You do not need the method how to get there. You know, Buddhism is a method. So once you have followed the method and you have found the way, there is no need to hold on to the method. You actually, once you realize the nature of reality, you get so much knowledge that you can show many sentient beings the way that they can become free of their disturbing emotions. You can play with it. You know, you do not need Buddhism anymore. You are free. You have so much more than just one way. You know, so it's not that you're chucking out a Dharma. Actually, your mind has become Dharma. Your mind has become so much Dharma that Dharma naturally is present in your mind all the time. So you're not letting go of that, you know, because that is what brings you a lot of happiness. You see reality as it is. You cannot unsee that. Seeing reality as it is means that disturbing emotions cannot arise in the mind. And I will explain in the coming days how that works. So don't worry about it. even say you haven't realized the nature of phenomena. Once you realize the nature of phenomena, once you see reality as it is, there is no need to hold on to the boat. So that's a natural thing. It's not a must. You know, no, don't get scared for anything. One more question. So, are unpleasant emotions bad? Do they not exist for a reason? For instance, I'm not afraid of a snake, it may bite me. Also, excessive positive emotions, happiness can take the shape of mania. So how does Buddhism explain this? So positive emotions and emotions that are connected to happy feelings are not the same thing. Attachment and pride, they are often connected with pleasant feelings. But they disturb the mind. So what we call negative emotions in Buddhism is all the emotions that disturb the mind, whether they come with a happy or an unhappy, or a pleasant or an unpleasant feeling. So why are unpleasant emotions bad? I never said that, did I? That's what we hear. Oh, we have to remove them, they are bad. No, for me, you do not have to do anything. If you feel happy with the way you are, please stay the way you are, right? But if you feel that your mind gets so disturbed and you have emotions that you're not in control of, and you want to learn how to do things differently, then Buddhism can be a method that can show you how to do things differently. It's not about good and bad. It's about, this is not what I want, you know. Actually, I want to find a happy mind, which is peaceful, which is calm, which is content by nature. How do I do that? It is not about, oh, but I'm bad when I'm not doing that. No, we're just human beings, you know, and we all suffer from similar disturbances. And we all maybe, I don't know, maybe you don't, but many of us want to be free of that. How do you do that? So why do negative emotions exist? They do exist for a reason, in the sense that they come from causes and conditions. Yes. Does that mean that there is more to it than just coming from causes and conditions? According to Buddhism, no. Does that mean that I cannot learn anything from negative emotions? No, you can learn from negative emotions, you know, or from negative experiences. You can use these in order to make your mind more positive, more happy, more clear, more whatever, what you choose. Right? So mania and happiness, I don't think they're the same thing. When you are manic, you have the feeling that you can handle anything and you feel fantastic and you feel euphoric, but the mind is very disturbed. You have lost contact with reality, right? And then you also know that after the manic phase, there is always something different where you feel the opposite. And so it is up and down. This disturbs the mind, no? Very unbalanced mind. If you could make the mind more in equanimity, where you're not reactive to whatever happens, but where you can let things be as they are, you know, you're much more in control. And when you're in control, you're more free. And when you're more free, that freedom, that can give so much happiness. Very different quality as the happiness of a manic person. Right? If we could stay with the happiness of the manic person all the time, you know, you might think, oh, well, that's a great thing. But it is like being on drugs, you know, you take the drugs, and then once the drugs are finished, you get the other side. And what you want to do is you want to find the qualities in the mind, where the mind is balanced, where the mind is in control, but at the same time, you can experience amazing levels of happiness. Okay. I'm going to do a little meditation with you, because there might be people who have never meditated. And I'm going to give you and I will read your questions tonight, you know, and then maybe tomorrow while I'm talking, I will answer them or come back to them a little bit. All right? My time is short and I need to put in as much as I can. So why do we meditate? You know, we normally listen to the teachings, and Buddhism teaches about the mind, and that we use the mind at a moment in a way that it's not serving our happiness. And so in order to apply these teachings, in order to practice this, we need to look inside the mind. We need to learn to see how our mind works. We need to connect with what is going on inside. See it for what it is. Accept what is there. Yeah. And so then there are many ways of meditating. One way of meditating is just looking what is going on inside, being observer. Another way is analyzing what is going on inside. Another way is applying certain ways of thinking in order to habituate yourself with a new way of thinking that is more in accordance with reality. But for tonight, we will just do a mindfulness meditation. Mindfulness means not forgetting the object. Mindfulness, for instance, of body means that we bring our awareness to the body and we observe the body and we stay with the body. That is mindfulness. Another aspect of the mind that we want to train with that is called alertness. Alertness is an aspect of our mind that is checking whether mindfulness is doing its job or not. You know? So mindfulness rests on the object, and alertness is checking all the time. Is mindfulness still on the object or not? Mindfulness gives the feeling of relaxation. Alertness is awake. So you want to have both, being awake and at the same time totally relaxed. You know, that is what a Buddha is. When we are fully awake and at the same time totally relaxed. So for us, that's difficult because once we start to relax, sleep comes. When we wake up, anxiety comes. So you go in between both, you know, you go into the mindfulness and you try to be alert. Then when you're too alert, you lose your mindfulness. So then you go back, oh no, I need to rest more. But when you rest too much, you lose your alertness. So when we start meditating, you have to go from one quality to the other. More mindfulness, more alertness. How do I balance them? And so you will go up and down, you know, between these two aspects of the mind. And we do that relaxed, right? We try to do this relaxed. So these are the qualities that we train in the mind. Being alert and at the same time relaxed. Being relaxed and at the same time alert. So when we meditate, there is a description of the posture, and I will take you through the posture. So it is good to sit in a place where you can straighten your back. So When you sit on a cushion, make sure that your cushion is high enough so that your back straightens up naturally without any effort, but that you are lifting up your sitting bones. And when you have that in the correct position, your back will naturally straighten up. And if you sit on a chair, it is important to have your feet on the ground and not to fully sit back to the chair, but maybe sit halfway on the chair so that your back also naturally straightens up. So the vertebrae, they are one on top of the other in a nice pile. And when you find that posture, you can relax all your muscles. And then you can put your hands, we put the right hand on top of the left, and then the thumbs slightly touching each other like this. And you put that on the level of your navel, or just below your navel. The elbows are a little bit away from your torso, allowing the air to move between your arms and the torso. Your head is a little bit bent forward. Your jaws are relaxed. Your tongue is touching the palate, just behind the teeth, the upper teeth. And your eyes are closed, but you allow a little bit of light to come in. Tendency to easily fall asleep when you close your eyes. It can be helpful to allow a little bit of light to come in. And so once you have found your posture, you can observe how your body feels. You are mindful of your body. And some people feel the body as a whole. And some people, they sometimes feel their knee and then their hands and then their neck. So whatever is comfortable for your mind. That is what you do, or that is what you allow to happen. And then because our mind is so easily distracted, your mind might wander off. And as soon as you notice that, you just bring your mind gently back to your body. If you feel some tension that needs releasing, you can release that. If you feel that you need to move your body slightly in order to feel more connected, you make that little change. And so just sitting in this posture, while you bring your mind to your body, naturally pacifies all your delusions, your attachment, your anger, your pride, your ignorance, your doubt, your jealousy. Mind back to your body. And when you feel comfortable, resting your mind on your body, being mindful of your body, you can bring your awareness to your breath. First, by observing the rising and falling of your abdomen. And so what you're doing is you're just observing. There is no right and wrong. No, I'm doing it good or I'm doing it bad. Breathing happens and you observe that. And however you breathe is how you breathe. Whatever comments we have to that is not going to change your breathing. It's not helpful in any way. So try to have a mind that is curious, open, accepting. And we can learn a lot by just observing our breath coming in, going out. Not by using our thinking, but by totally connecting with the experience of breathing, by becoming the experience. And having a listening attitude can be helpful in that. So reconnecting with your body, with your breathing, with your experience every day, even if it is only 5 minutes, can help you to connect with your mind. Can become that 5 minutes of peace, of a break of your daily routine. Where you learn to understand the mind, where you give yourself a chance to see another side of you. where you can understand, where you can connect with, we could call that our authentic self. Where you're not reactive, but where you are observing. So this gives you a break from the disturbing emotions. And therefore will help to lessen the disturbing emotions in your daily life. And it can also give you the space to start looking into the nature of the mind. And so we'll do that tomorrow in the meditation. We can bring this meditation to a conclusion by dedicating all the positive energy that we have gathered by listening, thinking, reflecting, meditating. We can dedicate them in a way that may they become a cause for our inner potential of wisdom and compassion to grow to a limitless capacity. So that we can be of greatest benefit to all sentient beings. And may all the positive energy that we have gathered today become a cause for the happiness of all sentient beings. Thank you very much for being here today. Tomorrow we'll talk about the discrepancy between how we see things to exist and how they exist in actuality. And we'll start looking into what is our actual suffering, what is causing the problems, what is going on inside us. All right, I hope to see you all tomorrow, same time, 5 o'clock Indian time. And I hope you have a good evening and a good day tomorrow.